A new independent lab test published in April 2026 found that nearly one-third of the most popular protein powders on the market contained more sugar, sodium, or cholesterol than what was listed on the label. Not a little more, significantly more. 6 out of 21 products tested failed quality standards completely. You bought something that said one thing on the label and contained something entirely different inside the tub. The protein powder industry is worth billions of dollars. Billions. And a large portion of that money comes from people who trust what they read on a label. People who wake up early, train hard, watch what they eat, and believe that the supplement they are paying $60, $70, sometimes $80 for is actually doing what the label promises. Most of the time, it is not. There are 3 main ways protein powder companies are deceiving you right now. And by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what to look for before you ever spend another dollar on a protein supplement. The first deception is called protein spiking, and it has been happening in the supplement industry for years. Here is how it works. When a company wants to test how much protein is in their product, they use something called a nitrogen test. The test measures nitrogen levels in the powder and uses that number to calculate the protein content. The problem is that certain cheap amino acids also contain high levels of nitrogen. So some manufacturers remove a portion of the actual whey protein from their product and replace it with cheap, free-form amino acids like taurine, glycine, or creatine. The nitrogen test still reads a high protein number. The label still says 25 grams of protein per serving, but what you are actually getting is far less real muscle-building protein than what you paid for. Manufacturers do this because some amino acids are cheaper than whey protein isolate while producing higher nitrogen readings. So swapping them out cuts costs while falsely inflating the protein value on the label. The company saves money. You get less protein. And because the nitrogen test cannot tell the difference between complete protein and a cheap amino acid, nobody gets caught. The second deception is what researchers call label misrepresentation, and it goes beyond protein content. In testing conducted as recently as April 2026, Consumer Lab found that nearly 29% of protein powders and shakes tested failed quality standards because they contained significantly more cholesterol, sodium, or sugar than what was listed on the label, with results confirmed through testing in a second independent laboratory. Think about that for a moment. You are buying a product specifically to support your health and fitness goals. You are tracking your macros, watching your sugar intake, managing your sodium levels. And the product you are using to do that contains ingredients in amounts the company never told you about. This is not a small independent brand cutting corners in a garage. These are products sold in major retail stores, promoted by fitness influencers, reviewed by thousands of people on Amazon. And they are still failing independent lab tests in 2026. The third deception is perhaps the most alarming, and it involves something most people never think to check. Consumer Reports tested popular protein powders and found that about 70% of products tested contained over 120% of their level of concern for lead. And 3 products also exceeded their level of concern for cadmium and inorganic arsenic, both classified as probable or known human carcinogens by the Environmental Protection Agency. Lead, cadmium, arsenic, in a product millions of people consume every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, because they believe it is making them healthier. A separate study by the Clean Label Project tested 160 products from 70 leading brands and found that 47% of those protein powders exceeded California Proposition 65 safety thresholds for toxic metals, with organic products actually showing even higher contamination levels. That last part is worth repeating. The organic protein powders, the ones marketed as cleaner, purer, and better for you, tested even higher for heavy metal contamination than conventional products. Now you might be wondering how any of this is legal. The answer is complicated, and it comes down to how the supplement industry is regulated in the United States. Unlike pharmaceutical drugs, dietary supplements do not need to be approved by the FDA before they go to market. Companies are largely responsible for testing their own products and ensuring their own labels are accurate. The FDA can take action after the fact if a product is proven to be dangerous, but by then, millions of units may have already been sold and consumed. Lawsuits have been filed against multiple supplement companies in recent years for misleading protein labeling practices, with complaints highlighting discrepancies between protein claims on labels and the actual methods used to calculate protein content. But lawsuits take years, and while those cases work their way through the courts, the products stay on shelves and consumers keep buying them. So what do you actually do with this information? There are 4 things you can check right now before buying any protein powder. First, look for the percent daily value for protein on the nutrition label. When a product mixes high and low quality proteins without listing the percent daily value, most consumers cannot tell how much of the total protein content is actually usable for muscle growth, making the big number on the front of the package misleading. If a product does not list the percent daily value for protein, that is a red flag. Second, check the ingredient list for free-form amino acids near the top. If you see taurine, glycine, or creatine listed high up in the ingredients of a protein powder, that is a sign the company may be spiking their nitrogen levels to inflate the protein count on the label. Third, look for third-party testing certifications. Organizations like NSF Certified for Sport, Informed Sport, and USP verify that what is on the label is actually in the product. If a protein powder does not carry one of these certifications, there is no independent verification that the label is accurate. Fourth, consider dairy-based protein sources over plant-based ones when possible. The research consistently shows that plant-based protein powders test higher for heavy metal contamination than whey or casein-based products. That does not mean all plant-based proteins are dangerous, but it is a factor worth considering. The protein supplement industry spends enormous amounts of money on marketing. They sponsor athletes, pay for influencer promotions, and invest in packaging that looks clean, scientific, and trustworthy. But independent lab testing tells a different story. A story where nearly 1 in 3 products fails basic quality standards, where heavy metals show up in products consumed daily, and where the protein content on the label may not reflect what is actually inside. You work hard for your money. You work hard in the gym. You deserve to know what is actually in the supplement you are paying for. Read the label carefully, look for third-party certifications, and never assume that a higher price means a better or safer product. Because in this industry, it rarely does.